Is a racially segregated public education inherently unequal? To find out, you have to read Brown versus Board of Education. But it's 15 pages. Don't have time for that? I've got you covered.
This is Too Long Didn't Read, where I normally cover New York Court of Appeals cases in around 5 minutes. But this is part of a special series I'm covering on landmark cases from the United States Supreme Court. This is the episode on the case of Brown versus Board of Education, published on May 17, 1954, with a citation of 347 U.S. 483. The issue in this case is whether racial segregation of public education itself is unconstitutional. To understand this case, we have to cover a little background.
The first essential background issue is the 14th Amendment. The Civil War was fought over racially based slavery in the United States of America. The Southern Confederacy of States asserted the right to continue enslaving its black residents. The Northern Union of States asserted that this was against the law. The Union won and suppressed the rebellion, defeating the Southern Confederacy. In the wake of the Civil War, Congress passed the 13th and 14th Amendments. Those amendments prohibited slavery and guaranteed equal protection of the law to all citizens. But after the Civil War, racial segregation became commonplace in all public shared spaces. In 1896, the Supreme Court decided the case of Plessy versus Ferguson. In that case, the Supreme Court held that racially segregated transportation was constitutional, so long as the facilities were separate but equal. That case allowed for continued racial segregation in public facilities, which included schools. This was the reality for African American children across America for decades. They were denied the same opportunities and resources as their white peers. So what are the facts of this case? The Brown versus Board of Education case is actually a group of cases from different states, including Kansas, South Carolina, Virginia, and Delaware. But each of these cases presented the same issue. In each case, black children were barred from attending the same schools as white children. The plaintiffs argued that separate educational facilities were inherently unequal, regardless of whether the facilities had the same contents, teachers, and other features. Segregated schools, they contended, deprived African American children of equal opportunities. From district court to Supreme Court, the journey of these lawsuits were arduous and filled with challenges. The Brown case was not immediately decided by the highest court in the land. It had to navigate through multiple layers of the judicial system. It began its journey in district courts, where initial arguments were heard and evidence was presented. The plaintiffs, represented by dedicated lawyers from the NAACP, faced strong opposition from those who wanted to maintain the status quo. The case slowly but steadily moved up the judicial ladder, with each court adding its own layer of scrutiny and deliberation. Finally, after much anticipation and legal maneuvering, it reached the United States Supreme Court, setting the stage for a historic showdown that would change the course of American history. In a momentous decision, the Supreme Court ruled unanimously in favor of the plaintiffs in Brown versus Board of Education. The Supreme Court held that education is incredibly important, perhaps the most important function of government. It's what allows young people to become successful civilians and citizens in this country. Because it is so important, when the state provides education, it must be made available to all on equal terms. It is unconstitutional because segregation on the basis of race creates feelings of inferiority, impairs motivation, and damages the potential of students who are excluded. They specifically hold that the separate but equal doctrine from Plessy versus Ferguson cannot be applied to education. The court declared that separate educational facilities are inherently unequal and violate the 14th Amendment. This unanimous verdict sent shockwaves throughout the nation. The impact of Brown versus Board of Education cannot be overstated. This landmark decision by the Supreme Court in 1954 was a turning point in American history. It dismantled the legal basis for segregation in education and paved the way for the desegregation of schools across America. This ruling declared that separate but equal was inherently unequal, challenging the status quo. The decision served as a catalyst for the civil rights movement, inspiring further legal challenges to discriminatory practices. It emboldened activists and provided a legal framework to fight for equality. While the fight for educational equality continues, progress has been made. The journey is far from over, but each step forward brings us closer to a more just society. Brown versus Board of Education remains a beacon of hope and a testament to the power of the law to bring about social change. It reminds us that the struggle for justice is ongoing and that every effort counts.
If you like what you just saw and want to see more just like it, please hit like or subscribe to let me know.